For the genuine believers, however, the Messiah had come. As you see, the two prophets will be pointing out the Antichrist. However, those who will be true and genuine Christians and will be anticipating the second coming of Christ correctly, they will not have to wait for the two prophets to learn the truth. They will figure out the truth all by themselves. So what is the purpose of this seal, of the seal? To aid the faithful in this recognition, to recognize that this man is the Antichrist. Now you may ask, is this going to be so terribly difficult? My friends, yes, yes, yes. But to see how these things are and how God seals mystically, I will discuss in a few words the seal which takes place in the vision of Ezekiel, being that this is considered to be a great typology. And we need to note that this seal and every seal aims to complete something or to carry out something or to have people warned about something. For example, when the sacrament of the Holy Eucharist is about to be completed, the priest seals the Holy Chalice. As we read in the priest's service books, the priest seals the Holy Chalice by the sign of the cross. Pay attention, we the priests, using our hand, bless the cup with the sign of the cross. This is called sphragisis, or a seal. In this manner, we also place the seal of the cross on the head of a person. We seal with the seal of the Holy Cross. Now, let's listen for all these things in the vision of Ezekiel in the 8th and 9th chapter. I will highly recommend for you to please read these two chapters when you go home. You will be amazed. You will be truly amazed. Ezekiel 8 and 9 chapters. There the prophet narrates that while at his home and discussing some subjects with the elders of Israel, he went into ecstasy. He was overcome by a vision, and this far away from Jerusalem. They were in Babylon. He was pulled by the hair, and the elders did not perceive anything other than the fact that the prophet went into some ecstasy. He was not carried bodily to Jerusalem, but in the spirit. However, he felt that he was carried away in body and spirit, but the elders who were in his presence do not lose sight of him. He does not speak to them because he is in a state of ecstasy. God takes him and brings him to the temple of Solomon and places him in a specific spot of the temple, and there he sees in the first phase of the vision the lawlessness and the sins of the people of Israel. The people of Israel are worshiping an idol of Hermes. God now takes him from there and places him at another point of the temple. There's a certain room, and God tells him, dig, and he dug. And all this is in the spirit, in a vision. And after this, after he dug the hole in this certain wall, God instructs him to enter inside this hole in a sort of a basement, a room. And God tells him to enter therein, to see what these people are doing, what evils they are doing. And the prophet says, and I enter therein, and he said to me, go in and see the wicked abominations which they're doing there. So I went in and saw, and there every sort of creeping thing, abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel portrayed all around on their walls. And there stood before them 70 men of the elders of the house of Israel, and in their midst stood Jazaniah the son of Shaphan. Each man had a censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. Does this not remind you the Masonic temple with all the different Masonic symbols and paraphernalia? Most of you saw these things in the pictures that were publicized in the newspapers lately, but we also know these things from a number of books in circulation about Freemasonry. They display many pictures inside of the Masonic Lodge. And what we have in the far side of the room is their altar, the icon of the sun, the icon of the moon, the Masonic triangle, the protractor, the square, all these symbols. This temple, and that's exactly what the lodge is. It is a temple. It stays locked. No one can enter. Those passing by, the neighbors, are clueless. They have no idea what goes on inside. So here in this vision, God opens a hole on the wall and says, go inside to see what takes place. Take a look inside. Doesn't this description remind you of the Masonic temple, the Masonic lodge, where these people have a lot of these elements, incense and worship? They even have worshipful masters. They worship the great architect of the universe, the sun. And this is precisely why they have the icons of the sun and the moon at the right and the left of the altar. During the two equinoxes of the year, they hold a celebration, a festival to honor the sun. And since we have a lot of Masonic lodges and a lot of Masons in our parish councils, let's listen to what will happen next. Exactly what happens to those in Jerusalem. And now Ezekiel enters the third phase of his vision, and God shows him another image. God takes the prophet to another point of the temple, and behold, there women were sitting and mourning, weeping on behalf of Tammuz, or Adonis, a deity that dies and resurrects. And this is nature, the worship of nature that dies in the winter and resurrects in the spring. So this worship of nature, the God behind this death and resurrection of nature, takes the name of Adonis or Tammuz, and that's the local name of Adonis in that area. So the women are bereaving, they're weeping on account of the death of Tammuz. So even women are delving into idolatry, especially women especially. Fourth image, at another place of the temple, as many as 20 men outside of the temple between the altar and the gates of the temple are doing something else. And let's read. There I saw as many as 20 men having their backsides towards the temple of the Lord and their faces on the opposite side, and they were worshiping the sun. The temple of Solomon was built with the altar facing west and not east, as our churches face today. Today's Orthodox Christian churches have their entrance door at the west wall, and the hieron, the altar, is in the east wall. The priest faces eastward. However, the Temple of Solomon was built in the opposite way compared to today's Byzantine Orthodox churches. The altar, or the main temple, was facing west. So these 20-some elders turned their backsides to the temple of God, and they were facing the sun. Which sun? They worshipped. Did you see this? They were worshiping the sun. Do they remind you of the Masons who worship the great architect of the universe, the sun? What will take place next? Wait and you will see. Son of man, did you see the abominations of my people? Did you see them? Some out in the open and some behind closed doors. Now the prophet sees 6 men with axes in their hands, and they are commanded to go out and slay all the inhabitants of the city because of these abominations. However, before the slaying takes place, a 7th man appears dressed in a long garment reaching his feet, a special attire with a special belt, If you will, this seventh man is God the Word who would incarnate in the aftermath. He is given a commandment, apparently from God the Father, and this seventh man received this order, and he does not have a slaughter weapon in his hand like the other six. And the voice tells him, go through Jerusalem, go through the midst of the city, and set the mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that are done in the midst thereof, and set the mark upon the foreheads of all those people who witness these abominations, the idolatries, the Masonic activities, the immoralities, the filth, and whatever else they see. They are not able to do anything about it. They are helpless. They can only do one thing: sigh, cry, pray, and they feel pain. They feel great pain. They are lamenting. They feel the pain for the awful state of God's people in Jerusalem, for all the abominations that take place inside the city. But again, they're helpless. So do not touch these men who are marked, who are sealed on their foreheads. And here I remind you of another seal in Exodus, where Moses instructed the Israelites to kill an unblemished lamb and seal the lintel and the side posts of the door, so the destroyer angel would pass over these sealed homes. There we have a seal, a special mark, and the Egyptians are devastated by the deaths of the firstborn, but the Hebrews are spared because they were sealed. You may want to study this in the first chapters of the book of Exodus. So you will spare all those who bear the mark on their foreheads. And to the others, about the others, go through the city and smite without pity, smite and slay young, old, maids, and little children and women, and begin from my holy ones, from my sanctuary, from the temple. Begin the slaughter from the archpriest, the priests, the elders. Begin your execution at the temple. I mentioned this many times, privately maybe, not publicly. When God's revenge and judgment falls upon our people, it will begin from us, the priests. And I'm not speaking irresponsibly. God tells us this here. Start the execution of my holy ones first. Yes, we the priests will pay first, because we have betrayed God. We were first to betray God, and our people followed us in our betrayal and apostasy. This is the truth, my friends. And now you may ask, what is this mark? The original Hebrew text uses the word T, the 22nd letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which coincides with the letter T of the Phoenician alphabet. If you would open your encyclopedia and look up the letter T or the word alphabet, you will see the Hebrew and the Phoenician alphabet, and the letter T of the Phoenician alphabet is much like our lowercase English letter T. This is pretty standard in the Latin, French, and English languages. The letter T is a cross. And from this we gather that the seventh man who was to set the mark upon people's foreheads, he was actually placing the cross. He was sealing these people with the sign of the cross. In previous lessons, I have told you that the uncreated energy of the precious cross was fully and always active in the Old Testament. And here in Ezekiel, the faithful are being sealed by the sign of the cross. Now, how can someone deny the seal of the precious cross? This is done by two methods. Theoretically, by not believing in Christ, and in praxis, by denying the power of the cross of Christ. As the Apostle Paul tells the Philippians, those Christians whose God is the belly. These are the enemies of the cross of Christ. In other words, they are baptized Christians